What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got another live fantasy football mock draft for you back on Fantasy Pros with a 12-team full-point PPR mock with that 8th overall position. Roster-wise, we've got 1 quarterback, 2 RBs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and then 4 bench spots. So that's pretty much it. Let's dive right into it, start this thing off, and we're going to go ahead, break down all of these selections, ours along with the selections made by other teams. But before we kick it off, a quick reminder for everyone interested, go ahead, get yourself a copy of the 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Drafts are fast approaching, and get a leg up on the competition. We've got top 150 overall player rankings, individual player bios, projections, tiers, along with general fantasy advice. So check all of that out. Details are in the description. But we are on the board here, and let's go ahead and quickly see what has taken place since we kicked this thing off. And we'll go ahead, quickly look at the draft board here, see if there's been any craziness to take place. But the first 3 picks are chalk. McCaffrey, Barkley, Zeke. That is exactly how I would approach these first 3 picks, regardless whether it's standard, whether it's half, whether it's full point PPR. Then we see Michael Thomas here at the 104. Now, again, I've been pretty vocal about saying that there's a plethora of running backs. I don't care how great Michael Thomas was last season, especially here in the first round when you have all those running backs still available to you. It's not like you would be reaching for one of them. To go ahead and choose them ahead of any wide receiver. That includes Alvin Kamara, that includes Dalvin Cook, that includes guys like Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, etc., Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So while I understand that pick of Michael Thomas, and while you will definitely see Michael Thomas go in the top 5 of many of your drafts this weekend, especially it's a full point PPR format, I'm still telling you guys, go ahead, do yourself a favor and land one of those difference making running backs, especially if it's a league with more drafters, because then you know when it gets back to you towards the end of the second round, man, the choice at running back will be thin. But afterwards, at the 105, you see Kamara, you see Dalvin Cook, and I do believe we just released a video saying how you guys should still be buying all of that Kamara and Dalvin Cook stock. Don't put any real weight into their contract negotiations. We believe that they will both shoot up week 1. Just do yourself a favor. Go ahead, get their handcuffs, Latavius Murray and Alexander Mattison. We've been saying that since day 1, so go ahead, do yourself a favor there. And then you see Derrick Henry come off the board at the 107. Now, since this is a full point PPR format, I would say that I wouldn't be prioritizing Derrick Henry as much. Other running backs that I would go ahead and take ahead of him, guys like pretty much every single name here, maybe except Miles Sanders. You see Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the recommended choice, Austin Eckler, and then Joe Mixon. But let's go ahead and switch it up here. I think all these top 3 choices, because we will be going running back, are great. I'm just going to go with Joe Mixon. Maybe you're a little bit worried about reports initially saying that Clyde Edwards-Helaire might split some time, or that Austin Eckler might split some time. Look, I don't buy any of those reports. Both these guys are the dude. But mixing it up because Mixon did just get paid, so we know that he's going to go and report, be the main guy. Maybe a little bit of a safer pick than Eckler and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe just not as high of a ceiling. But let's go ahead and add him here. So we've got Mixon at the 108, and we actually get extremely lucky here, in my personal opinion, because after Mixon, you see Austin Eckler, then Miles Sanders. For me, Miles Sanders, a little bit too early at this point in time, considering guys like Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, and CEH are still available, and Sanders still dealing with that lower body injury. Then you see a big time run on wide receivers, and that's why I said we got lucky, because Adams, Julio, Hopkins, and Tyreek all go, followed by Kenyon Drake. Look, I can't fault you if you go ahead and select Devontae Adams or Julio at that point at the end of the first round. I do think it's good value, but the only thing I would say is afterwards, since there's still some really good running back names available, to go ahead and get one of those running backs, because starting off wide receiver, that's going to be a little bit tough to come back from, but we'll see. We'll go ahead and judge that later on. Kenyon Drake goes afterwards. Chris Godwin goes with the pick right before ours. So here, honestly, I actually think that maybe if we had even been considering wide receiver, Now that's not even close to a possibility because it would be a huge reach. So we're back to the running backs, and we're looking at Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Josh Jacobs. I think both these guys are sensational choices. Who has the higher ceiling? In my opinion, that is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So I'm just going to give him the nod here. I realize that maybe you think he's a rookie. He's a little bit of a risky selection. But in my opinion, I think he has huge upside. So I really like the selection there in general. Now, after that, you see Josh Jacobs. So obviously, he was that next guy on a lot of people's wish list, even though if it's the computer here drafting, then Nick Chubb, Allen Robinson, Travis Kelce, Kittle. So the 2 tight ends go here towards the end of the second round. Aaron Jones goes. Odell Beckham goes. Beckham is a guy that's been rising up draft boards. Now, a lot of people believe that he's undervalued, and I would tend to agree with that. But at the same time, let's realize that guys like a Mike Evans, Golladay, Thielen, and DJ Moore probably should be ranked a little bit higher than an Odell Beckham because with the Cleveland situation, it's a run-first offense, and there's a lot of other mouths to feed. Then you see Lamar Jackson, Mike Evans, Kenny Golladay, love the value there. Patrick Mahomes makes sense. That's what you're going to see, even though we continue to advise, unless you're in a super flex league with 2 quarterback spots, then you shouldn't really be taking a quarterback even in the 3rd round. That's our opinion on the matter. You can still get great talent afterwards. Thielen, then Zach Ertz, then DJ Moore. I was really hoping one of those wide receivers would fall to us because I think that all those guys have wide receiver 1 upside. So let's go ahead and quickly see what the next type of rankings are here. James Conner is someone that we can go with, but I think we can go ahead and gamble that Conner would be available to us in that next 4th round. So I say let's go best wide receiver available, unless there's great value at tight end, which isn't the case. So right now we're looking at wide receiver. I'm looking at Juju, Robert Woods, Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, Calvin Ridley. Who's the guy that I have ranked highest out of these guys? And who's the guy that I'm most excited about that I think has the biggest upside? And right now I'd probably have to go ahead and say it's between Cooper Kupp and Calvin Ridley. And I'm just going to go ahead and get the guy that I want. That's Calvin Ridley. I believe in Ridley. You might make the case that it's a little bit too early to draft him at this point in time in, towards the end of the 3rd round, but I'm just going to go ahead and add him. We need to go ahead and get a wide receiver. James Conner would have been my other choice, but let's see how this plays out because, oh man, we get sniped with that James Conner pick, unfortunately. He would have been the no-brainer afterwards. But you see after that a lot of those wide receivers we were considering go. Juju Smith, Amari Cooper, Mark Andrews goes, Robert Woods, and then a run on running backs. Carson, good value on Carson, actually. Cam Akers, though. No way Cam Akers should be going that high. I realize there's going to be a lot of love for these rookies, but Cam Akers in LA, sure, he might start off the season, Henderson dealing with an injury. I don't trust that offensive line, and I think it's probably going to become a running back by committee. You see Todd Gurley, you see James Conner. But guess what? It seems like, I believe, that Cooper Kupp fell to us. He was a name that I mentioned. I like Cooper Kupp. He was someone that I was considering in the 3rd round. So this is a no-brainer. We're going to go ahead and add Cooper Kupp and then see what's available to us in that 5th round. I really like the way that this has started off. And you can see that now let's quickly look at our overall roster. Joe Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Calvin Ridley, and then obviously Cooper Kupp being added to the squad as well. Now, selections that will be made afterwards. So, actually, I guess our selection of Cooper Kupp was not processed, so let's quickly do it one more time. So, draft. There we go. We've added him to the squad. That's taken care of. So getting back to the draft board to see who is available, what the best value is, and what the last couple of selections have been. You see here after Cooper Kupp, A.J. Brown, Courtland Sutton, Tyler Lockett, Le'Veon Bell, DJ Shark, Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon. I can't really fault any of those picks. They make sense. I think they're all sensible selections. Terry McLaurin afterwards, T.Y. Hilton, all wide receivers that I like. Tyler Boyd. maybe a little bit early for Tyler Boyd. David Johnson, Darren Waller goes in that 5th round, Devontae Parker, DK Metcalf. So now we are back on the board, and we're in a great situation just to go ahead and take the next best player available. Per these rankings, that would be Jonathan Taylor, but I don't quite see Jonathan Taylor that high. In my opinion, it will be the Marlon Mack show to kick off the season. And then Leonard Fournette. Look, we obviously know that Leonard Fournette was cut from the Jaguars. It didn't take long for him to find a new home. Obviously, that's in Tampa Bay. I don't love that situation. I would be staying away from that entire backfield. There's just too many mouths to feed at the running back position. And the volume that Fournette would have gotten in Jacksonville isn't even close to what it would have been to what it will be now in Tampa Bay, especially as a pass catcher. We knew he wasn't going to get 76 receptions again this season, but he was, probably being projected safely so at around 50 receptions. That won't be the case anymore either. I think it'll probably be around 35 receptions for Leonard Fournette now in Tampa Bay. So let's look at some of our wide receiver options here. You see Stephon Diggs, Jarvis Landry, Michael Gallup, Marquise Brown, and I like a Michael Gallup here. I think that's good value. So let's go ahead and add him to the squad. I think we can afterwards get some good value on the turn at running back. I also do like Kareem Hunt. I think he has huge upside. But for now, we'll go ahead and add Michael Gallup. So add him to the squad. He is our flex play. And then I think there will still be some pretty good choices at wide receiver afterwards if we want to go ahead and go that route. So I was hoping that potentially Kareem Hunt would fall to us. That isn't the case. But so you can see here after we selected Michael Gallup, Stephon Diggs, Dak Prescott, Kareem Hunt, then Jonathan Taylor, Evan Ingram, Landry, AJ Green, and Russell Wilson. So I'm going to go ahead and take, again, another gamble with the injury situation to David Montgomery, even though it doesn't seem like it will be, one that lasts a while. I'm going to go ahead, take a risk that he's still going to be there, and go with the wide receiver here in Julian Edelman. I think he's very consistent in full-point PPR formats. Cam Newton, obviously the starter in New England, like we all knew he would be. Let's not pretend that that's really a surprise to anybody. And Julian Edelman is the top weapon there. Unfortunately, though, David Montgomery is not available. So let's see where he went. And after Edelman, you see the picks of Kyler Murray, Marquise Brown, Montgomery. So he only went a couple picks later. I thought maybe that he'd be available in that 7th round. I think if this was a draft with other individuals, that might be the case, because obviously here, Fantasy Pros is going strictly by the rankings. Will Fuller, Leonard Fournette, Deshaun Watson, Sterling Shepard. So Leonard Fournette now going the 6th round. Probably where you might see him go in your drafts, especially if the person that's taking him is running back desperate, like was the case here. But Sterling Shepard rounds out that 6th round. Jamison Crowder, great value. Brennan Cooks, unfortunately, goes off the board. A run on quarterbacks as well. And at this point, I believe I was going to say we are one of 3 teams now that does not have a quarterback. Let's see if there's anyone that we really like. I think we can get good value on some of these guys afterwards. Mark Ingram right now would be the top choice. Let's see if there's anyone we really like at the wide receiver position. Even though I don't like Mark Ingram, I've been on record saying that at this point, he would be a good value pick. DeAndre Swift, I think Carrion will be the starter there to kick things off. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, James White. Too many running backs in New England. Probably just going to go ahead and avoid that situation in general. So right now, even though I'm not wild about it, I do think that Mark Ingram is probably our best bet at this point in time. So let's go ahead and add him. Potential depth there. So it is what it is. In terms of value picks, sure, we get the nod from Fantasy Pros that it was a good value pick, but I'm not all that really concerned about that. That's not what I care about. So at this point in time, I do want to add one more wide receiver, and Deebo Samuel is someone that's very intriguing because it seems like he could potentially start the season healthy and available for week 1. And if that's the case, this is great value for Deebo Samuel. So let's go ahead and add him to the squad. And now we can turn our attention to a quarterback, I would say. So let's go ahead and add a Drew Brees. Get him on the team. And now taking a look at some of these other selections. So we kind of went quickly with our last couple of choices after Mark Ingram. You saw guys like a Christian Kirk, Devin Singletary, Carson Wentz. Honestly, right now, I'd probably be fading Devin Singletary completely. James White and Tariq Cohen, good value PPR there from that perspective. I like the value we got on Debo. Then a run on these next group of running backs. Swift, Gibson, Ronald Jones. Right now, Jones, so much for the hype for 2019. Or for 2020, I'm not touching Ronald Jones at all this season. Jordan Howard, Hurst, Cook. Then a huge run on running backs before our Drew Brees selection. Lindsey, Breida, Dobbins, Michelle, Moss, Mack, Johnson. I would have loved to go ahead and take Marlon Mack. I think he's a great pick that people are sleeping on. He's going to kick off the year as the starter behind a great offensive line. Then you see Coleman, Murray, Armstead, Hines. Armstead right now honestly have more value in the PPR format for Chris Thompson. So that is the situation there. And we've got 2 more picks to make. So let's go ahead and add a tight end here. And guys that I like, I'm just going to go ahead and target, a couple of potential breakouts. I like a Mike Gesicki. So let's add him to the team. And then we might potentially add another backup tight end, someone like a Jack Doyle. That's what I would usually do, but let's see if there's some potential great value here. And I do see a value that I mentioned in Chris Thompson that I do like. And that's probably what I'm going to go with here. In a full point PPR format, if something happens to your starting running back, he's not a bad flex play. I think he'll probably have right around 10 to 11 points per week in full point PPR formats. So let's go ahead and conclude this thing here with Chris Thompson being added to the squad to get another running back, obviously covering the most important position, obviously the running back position, and we're going with Chris Thompson here. So that concludes our draft. Let's see what grade we get from Fantasy Pros. But we get a B- here. So grading the roster, we have Drew Brees, Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Ridley, Cooper Kupp, Mike Gesicki, Michael Gallup, Edelman, Ingram, Debo, and Chris Thompson. So I'd probably go ahead and say that I believe our roster is better than that. Let's start off by saying that. Drew Brees, to me, in the NFC South, top 10 quarterback. I like that selection there. Joe Mixon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we got very good value on those guys. I think we hit a home run in the first 2 rounds. Then you could argue we potentially reached on Calvin Ridley in the 3rd round, but I do believe we got good value on Cooper Kupp in the 4th, so that kind of cancels itself out. I have high hopes for Calvin Ridley. Then we got, another wide receiver because we knew we kind of, didn't have that big name wide receiver. We went Michael Gallup, then added a guy like a Julian Edelman. So I like how we rebounded there. Mike Gesicki, not a flashy name, but a potential breakout. If this went a couple rounds further, we would have added a guy like a Jonnu Smith as well and a Jack Doyle as a potential backup in case Gesicki doesn't pan out. Mark Ingram, say what you will. Again, I'm not the biggest Mark Ingram fan, but I do think at some point in time, for every single player, you get to a situation where the value is too good to pass up. So we got Mark Ingram. Then Debo Samuel as well falls in that boat. And then finally Chris Thompson. So I'd probably give this roster a solid B, not a B-, with the potential for a B+ if Ridley and Cooper Kupp pan out. And if Gesicki hits, then you're talking about a B+, A-. But overall, I like how this turned out. Let me hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree, along with any other fantasy questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them. And a final reminder, go ahead, get yourself a copy of that 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. All the details in the description. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.